Today, we're going to talk about how to do work that truly matters in a world that feels like it's designed to pull you in a million different directions. We're going to talk about building your very own fortress of focus.
So let's just get right into it. When you think about focus, what do you picture? Is it, just that kind of magical feeling of being in the zone, some fleeting state you just have to hope you stumble into? That's how most of us see it. But what if that's completely backwards?
Well, check this out. This quote from our source material flips that entire idea on its head. Focus isn't something you feel, it's something you build. It's a deliberate wall, a structural barrier that you put out between you and the rest of the world, a fortress. Okay, so why is building this fortress so absolutely crucial right now? Well, to get that, we have to look at the world we're all swimming in. The source calls it the world of the reactionary node, an age defined by what it calls shallow work. And this really breaks it down. Shallow work is our default mode, isn't it? It's being reactive, jumping on every email, checking every notification, just ticking off the easy logistical boxes. It makes you feel busy, but you're not really moving forward. And deep down, you know it. Deep work, on the other hand, is the total opposite. It's proactive. It's when you intentionally disconnect to wrestle with the really hard problems, the stuff that demands every ounce of your brain power.
So the million-dollar question is, how do we escape that reactive cycle and get to the good stuff? Well, there's a protocol for it, a blueprint for building that fortress we keep talking about, and it's called deep work.
Here's the official definition, but let's talk about what this really means. It's not just about putting your phone on silent. No, it's about going all in, pushing your mind to its absolute limit in that bubble of concentration. It's kind of like a weightlifter fighting for that one last rep. That's where the real growth happens.
I love this metaphor the source uses, the pattern weaver. Think of yourself as an artist, weaving together these intricate, complex ideas. Deep work is your shield. It's the powerful defense that protects your delicate creative process from getting ripped to shreds by constant interruptions. But get this isn't just some clever productivity hack. We're talking about a real neurological process. When you commit to deep work, you're literally managing and upgrading your own neural operating system. You are actively rewiring your brain.
So here's what's actually going on inside your head. Every time you focus intensely on one thing without distraction, you're strengthening the neural pathways for that skill. The process is called myelination. You can think of it like adding insulation to a wire. It makes the signal faster and clearer. You are literally building a superhighway in your brain for the things that matter most.
This all connects to a killer principle from systems thinking, resource concentration. You've probably heard of the 80-20 rule, right? This is that rule in action. It's about aiming all of your energy, 100% of it, on that vital 20% of tasks that will actually give you 80% of your results. Deep work is the only way to make that happen.
So, how do we actually do this? It's basically a three-step process. First, you build the fortress. I mean it. Turn off the phone, close the tabs, find a quiet spot. Second, you target those high-leverage tasks we just mentioned. And third, and this is so important, you have to allow for consolidation. You need rest. You need downtime. That's when your brain actually solidifies everything it's learned. And this is the magic part. When you really insulate your mind, that struggle to get started, that resistance you feel, it just disappears. You're not fighting a war against distractions anymore. You're just in flow, creating and diving deeper than the noise can even reach.
Which brings us to the ultimate payoff. What happens when this becomes a regular practice? You completely transform how you operate in the world. You stop being a passenger and you become the architect. So what kind of results are we talking about here? A little bit better? A little more efficient? Nope. The source claims that by using this intense resource concentration, you can produce work that is literally 10 times better, 10 times more valuable than what the average person produces in a state of constant distraction. 10 times. And this is probably the biggest takeaway of all. In today's world, information is everywhere. It's cheap. But focus is rare. Focus is valuable. The ability to go deep is the new IQ. It's the skill that separates you from the pack and lets you create things that nobody else can. This slide just sums it all up perfectly. You shift from being that reactionary node, just bouncing from one ping to the next, to becoming an original architect. You're the one proactively designing and building things of real, genuine value. Ultimately, this whole thing requires a massive mindset shift. The game isn't about managing your time anymore. It's about managing your neural environment. It's about giving that CEO part of your brain the quiet, protected space it needs to do its best work, to find those breakthrough ideas and weave those golden threads of innovation. So, as we wrap this up, the final thought is for you. This fortress of focus isn't some impossible dream. It's a choice and a system that's available to anyone willing to build it. The real question isn't whether you can, it's what rare and valuable thing will you choose to create once you're inside. Let's just jump right in with a question. Think about this for a second. Are you managing your time, or are you managing your neural environment? Most of us, right, we're obsessed with calendars, to-do lists, all these hacks for managing time. But what if we're all focused on the wrong thing? What if the real key isn't the clock, but the mental space you create for yourself? So that's what we're going to get into. We're going on a little journey here, from being what's called a reactionary node, constantly getting pulled in a million directions, to becoming an original architect. That's someone who intentionally designs their neural environment to produce just incredible work. And the key to all of this is a powerful concept called deep work. Here's the game plan. First, we're going to talk about the problem, the reactionary node. Then, we'll build our defense system, the fortress of focus. After that, we'll get into the practical side with the rules of deep work. And finally, we'll look at the ultimate goal, becoming the original architect. Okay, so let's start by looking in the mirror, because so many of us are stuck in this mode. It's this modern state of constant distraction, what our source material calls being a reactionary node. And this really lays out the two paths you can take. On the left, you've got the reactionary node. Their brain is basically a pinball machine, just bouncing from one notification to the next. And the work they produce? It's shallow, it's average. But then look at the right, the original architect. They don't let their environment manage them. They manage their environment to achieve deep focus. The result is work that is both rare and incredibly valuable. So, how do we get out of that reactionary trap? Well, the answer isn't just to try harder to focus. It's about building a defensive structure. It's about creating what's called the fortress of focus. And at the very heart of this fortress is deep work. Now, this definition is so important. It's not just about concentrating, it's distraction-free concentration. And it's on tasks that are so demanding they actually push you to your cognitive limits. That is where the real breakthroughs happen. And this quote, this one really flips the script. We tend to think of focus as a mood, right? A feeling we have to wait for. But this reframes it completely. Focus isn't something you feel, it's something you build. It's a barrier, a system you construct between your mind and all that noise out there. I want you to think of your brain as a super powerful operating system, your neural OS. Now, when you're constantly multitasking and reacting to pings, it's like having 100 tabs open. Your OS is fragmented, its resources are spread thin. But when you enter your fortress of focus, you shut down all that background noise. You allow your brain to gather all of its power and point it at one single important thing. Okay, so we know what the fortress is, but how do you actually build it? How do you live there? Well, that's where the rules come in. This is all about learning to actively manage your neural environment. And the number one rule is something called resource concentration. The idea is so simple, but it is so powerful. You stop spreading your mental energy across 100 different tasks. Instead, you channel 100% of your brain power into that vital 20% of tasks, the ones that are going to generate almost all of your most important results. And this chart just puts it all into perspective. That top 20% of your work, it doesn't just produce slightly better results. No way. It can produce results that are 10 times more valuable. Meanwhile, that other 80% of stuff we do, it pretty much just keeps the lights on. The architect knows exactly where to invest their energy. And get this, there's something incredible happening inside your brain when you work this way. You aren't just working, you're literally strengthening the neural pathways for that skill. It's a process called myelination. It's like upgrading the wiring in your brain, making the circuits for your most important skills faster and more efficient. You are physically upgrading your own brain. Which brings us to the final part of this, the payoff. What does it actually mean? What does it feel like to become the original architect of your own mind and your own work? This quote, it just says it all, doesn't it? In an economy that is flooded with distraction and shallow work, the person who can consistently shut out the noise and go deep has a skill that's becoming more and more rare. And because of that, it's becoming unbelievably valuable. It is the ultimate cognitive advantage. So what are the perks of being an architect? Well, for one, you start creating value that almost no one else can replicate. You insulate your mind from all the external chaos. That feeling of
friction of having to force yourself to work, it just vanishes as you get into that state of flow. And from that protected space, you can finally do what our source calls weaving the golden threads of innovation. And so, here we are, right back where we started. The big mindset shift is this. You stop obsessing over the clock. You stop wrestling with your calendar, and you start curating the quality of your own mind. You become the manager, the architect of your neural environment. That is the entire game. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Think of your conscious mind as your own personal CEO. It has the capacity for absolutely incredible things, for creation, for innovation, but it needs the right conditions. It needs quiet. It needs a protected space to do its best work. So the real question is, what amazing things will you let it build once you finally give it that space?
Today, we're diving into a feeling that, let's be honest, is practically everywhere in our crazy, noisy world. That deep, nagging anxiety that you're somehow behind. We're going to unpack where that feeling comes from, and way more importantly, introduce a really powerful mental model to help you find your own path again. So, let's get into it.
You know the feeling, right? It's that quiet dread that hits you when you're scrolling through your phone late at night. That sense that everyone else got some secret memo, they got a head start, and you're just scrambling to catch up. It's such a heavy feeling, and if you felt it, trust me, you are not alone. It's actually a completely human response to the world we're living in right now.
You see, this anxiety isn't some personal flaw. It's what happens when you live in a world with seemingly unlimited choices. You feel behind because you're hyper-aware of every single path you could have gone down, of all those other versions of you that could exist in some parallel universe. It's the natural result of seeing infinite possibilities playing out all around you.
And here's the most important thing to get. This isn't a fair race to begin with. The people you're comparing your life to, they're not even fully real. They're just curated highlight reels, digital ghosts. So that frustration you feel trying to keep up, it isn't a sign that you're not good enough. It's a sign that your soul is just tired of competing with shadows. So, what's the alternative?
Well, the answer isn't to just try and run faster. It's to build. To actually construct a mental space where all that noise, all that comparison just can't get to you. And that's what we're calling the fortress of focus.
So, the foundation of this fortress is an idea called deep work. Now, this isn't just about trying harder to focus. No, it's a specific, structured practice. It's about intentionally entering a state of pure, zero-distraction concentration on a single, really challenging task. And this is a total game changer. We tend to think of focus as a mood, right? Like something we have to wait for or get ourselves into. But this flips that whole idea on its head. Focus isn't a feeling you find. It's a structure you build. It's a wall, a real barrier you design and put up around your mind to protect it.
Think about it like this. Every time you do deep work, you're activating your mind's ultimate defense system. You're literally creating an environment where your brain can gather all of its power, totally shielded from the constant storm of emails, notifications, and other people's demands. It becomes your own personal sanctuary.
But here's the really cool part. This fortress isn't just for defense. It's also the place where your absolute best, most powerful work gets done. Let's look at why the ability to build this thing has become so unbelievably valuable that some people are calling it the new measure of intelligence.
Okay, so it all boils down to this principle called resource concentration. Instead of scattering your mental energy across, a dozen different shallow tasks, like a little bit of butter spread over way too much bread, you channel all of it, 100% of your cognitive horsepower, onto the very few tasks that will actually move the needle. And the results of concentrating like this, they're just staggering. Seriously, by focusing on that critical 20% of high-impact work, you can create things that aren't just a little bit better, but potentially 10 times better than the kind of scattered, shallow work that's become the default for almost everyone. This isn't just hype, it's the real power of undivided attention.
And this quote just nails the new reality we're in. In an economy that is literally flooded with distraction, the person who can consistently shut out all that noise and go deep has a skill that is both incredibly rare and almost impossible to automate. It really is the new superpower. When you start cultivating this skill, it causes this fundamental shift in your identity. You literally move from being a passive receiver of information to an active creator of value. It's the difference between being an architect of your life and just another node in the network. So on one side, you've got the reactionary node. This is the default state from most of us, right? You're living in your inbox. You're reacting to whatever the algorithm throws at you. You're constantly being pulled in a million different directions at once. But on the other side, you have the original architect. This is the person who intentionally designs their environment and their focus to create something new, something that matters. So what does it really mean to be an architect of your own mind? Well, it means you stop obsessing over time management hacks and you start managing the inputs you allow into your brain. You become the gatekeeper of your own attention. You give yourself that quiet space you need to connect ideas, to innovate, and to insulate your mind from the chaos outside.
And all of this brings us right back to where we started. Because building this fortress, it's not about becoming some hyper-productive machine just so you can finally catch up to everybody else. Oh no, it's about something much, much deeper than that. The validation you're looking for, it's never going to come from catching up to some ghost on a screen. It comes from the profound, quiet realization that your timeline is the only one that truly matters. You're a work in progress, a story that's still being written, and you are absolutely allowed to take your time. You are allowed to be exactly where you are right now.
So, let's ask that big question one more time. With all this in mind, how do you finally, actually, step out of that exhausting, never-ending race against the shadows on the screen?
Well, the answer is simple, but it's definitely not easy. You do it by building your fortress. By creating a space of such deep, intentional focus that the noise of comparison, the pressure of other people's timelines, of what you should be doing, it all just fades into the background. And it's in that quiet that you finally find your own pace and your own path.
Because in the end, the real purpose of this fortress isn't just about keeping the world out. It's about giving yourself the sanctuary to create what is uniquely yours. So the final question isn't about what you'll defend against, but what you'll create and nurture within those walls. What will you build inside your fortress?
All right, let's talk about something that gets to so many of us. It's that nagging feeling that you're always playing catch-up, always just a little bit behind. Today, we're going to tackle that head-on and build a system to leave that feeling in the dust. So let me ask you this, and be honest. Do you constantly feel like you're falling behind? It's that little voice in your head, right? The one that says, no matter how fast you run, the finish line keeps moving. But where does that feeling actually come from? Well, for most of us, it boils down to one simple but incredibly powerful force: comparison. We're always measuring our own chapter 1 against someone else's chapter 20. We see their highlight reels on social media, their big wins at work, and we think, why isn't that me? And you know what? It is absolutely exhausting. So how do we start to break this cycle? I want you to try a little experiment. A powerful first step I like to call selective ignorance. It's simple. For the next 48 hours, I want you to identify the one person or the one platform that triggers this anxiety the most and just mute them. That's it. The goal here is just to observe, to feel the quiet that follows and see what kind of mental space opens up. Now, this little detox, it's going to provide some immediate relief for sure, and that's great. But we have to be real here. This is like putting a Band-Aid on a deeper issue. It's an emotional quick fix for what is actually a structural problem in how we work and live. So yeah, observing the pain is the first step, but it's only the beginning of your real liberation. This is the crucial pivot point. We have to shift our entire approach. We need to move from the old way, which is constantly trying to manage our feelings, to a new way, managing our structure. This is all about building internal systems, your own personal metrics that let you track your own growth with real precision, completely independent of all that external noise. And that brings us to this really transformative idea. Focus isn't some magical, fleeting emotion you have to chase. It's not a feeling at all. It is a structure. Think of it like a defensive wall that you intentionally build around your attention. The name for the system you use to build this barrier? It's called deep work. You can think of it as the set of rules, the protocol you follow to get into that state of pure, zero distraction concentration. This is the zone where you can push your brain to its absolute limit and do your best thinking. And when you practice deep work, you are stepping inside your fortress of focus. And this isn't just some cute metaphor, it's a real, tangible mental space that is completely insulated from the chaos and noise of the outside world. So what's actually happening on a neurological level inside this fortress? Well, you're giving your brain's operating system a chance to really flex its muscles. You're literally strengthening the neural pathways for your most critical skills. It's a process called myelination. The best way to think about it is like putting thicker insulation on an electrical wire so the signal gets faster and clearer. This is how you start producing work that's rare, that's valuable, and that's hard for anyone else to replicate. And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? In an economy that is absolutely flooded with distraction and shallow, busy work, the ability to go deep isn't just a nice-to-have skill. It's the new benchmark for intelligence and value creation. It's your ultimate competitive advantage. When you commit to this practice, something fundamental starts to shift in your identity. You stop being just a reactionary node, someone who just pings back and forth processing whatever emails and notifications come in. You become an original architect, someone who actually designs, creates, and builds something new. Let's just look at these two side by side because the difference is stark. The reactionary node is obsessed with managing time, but their reality is a state of constant distraction, and their output is shallow. The original architect, they're playing a totally different game. They focus on managing their neural environment, keeping it insulated from noise so they can produce that deep, rare, innovative work. They're not reacting to noise. They're weaving their own patterns. Okay, so how does the original architect actually pull this off? They use an incredibly powerful principle from systems thinking. It's called resource concentration. This means you stop trying to do everything. Instead, you channel 100% of your energy into the vital few, that 20% of tasks that deliver 80% of the results. And the impact of doing this? It's not just a little better. We're not talking about a 10% improvement. By concentrating your resources like this, you can produce results that are an order of magnitude better. We're talking 10 times the quality, the impact, and the value of someone who's just spreading their energy all over the place. And this right here is the ultimate goal. Your true journey begins the moment you've built your system, your fortress of focus so perfectly that the friction, the willpower needed to start doing deep work just disappears. Your mind can then dive to depths that the surface level noise can never, ever reach. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. That feeling of being behind, it comes from trying to manage all the external noise. But the feeling of making real progress, that comes from architecting your internal focus. Don't let the world's highlight reel distract you from building your own masterpiece. The choice of which game you want to play, well, that's entirely up to you.